The call came in 2 days after Christmas, the kind of quiet, bitterly cold morning where Spokane felt more like a half-frozen postcard than a city with secrets. I was at my desk in the precinct, finishing paperwork that no one ever wanted to do, when dispatch routed a welfare check. Elderly woman. No answer at her door for 2 days. Neighbors concerned. Routine on the surface, but in my line of work you learn that routine is what people say right before everything changes. Her name was Margaret Whitmore. 78 years old. Widow. Owned a large house on the north side, one of those aging craftsman homes with a yard that used to host neighborhood barbecues but now just held shadows. The neighbor said she was kind, quiet, the type who made cookies for kids even after her own children stopped visiting. They also said something else. She'd been talking a lot about wanting more family around. That she'd been lonely. And that recently some relatives she hadn't seen in years had started showing up at her door. I parked my cruiser outside her place. The house stood too still, no smoke from the chimney, no footprints in the snow leading up to the porch. The kind of silence that presses against your ribs. I knocked, announced myself. Nothing. Circled the perimeter, found the back door locked, windows dark. I called it in, and when my partner arrived we made entry. The smell hit first. Not decay, not death, but something stale, like a house abandoned too quickly. Furniture draped with blankets. Lights unplugged. But in the kitchen, there were still dishes in the sink, a teacup half filled with what had long gone cold. Someone had left in a hurry, but not before living here. We cleared room after room until we reached the den. That's where we found the letters. Neat stacks of envelopes tied with ribbon on the coffee table, each one addressed in careful handwriting, to my beloved family. Dozens of them. Some open, some not. I flipped one over, and the words inside made my stomach knot. I don't need much, just your company. I have the house, I have my memories, but I want family again. Please visit more often. I'm updating my will this spring, and I want you all to know that love matters more than money. It was dated just 3 weeks earlier. Something in that moment shifted for me. I've been a cop long enough to recognize when love and money get tangled. People will forgive betrayal, they'll forgive cruelty, but when inheritance is involved, families turn into battlegrounds. The master bedroom told a clearer story. File boxes open on the bed, legal papers scattered like a storm had blown through. A draft of a will unsigned. Assets listed in neat columns. The house, a small investment portfolio, life insurance. Altogether, maybe $500,000. Enough to attract attention. Enough to make families show up with smiles that hid knives. We didn't find Margaret that day. Not in the house, not in the neighborhood. Just those letters, those papers, and a phone ringing endlessly in the hall as relatives called and called. My partner checked the call log. The same 2 numbers over and over. One listed as daughter, Elaine. The other, nephew, Victor. We contacted both. Elaine's voice shook when she answered. She said her mother had been confused lately, maybe depressed. She swore she'd been checking in, but when I pressed for dates, she hesitated. Victor, on the other hand, sounded rehearsed. Too smooth. He said Margaret was fine, that she'd gone to stay with friends, though he couldn't name them. When I asked why he was calling her house so often if he knew where she was, there was a pause. Long enough to tell me I was right to be suspicious. That night, I sat at my desk going through the evidence we'd collected. The unsigned will, the letters begging for family connection, the empty house that looked more staged than abandoned. And one thought stuck with me. Margaret Whitmore wanted love. Her family wanted her estate. Somewhere in that collision she'd disappeared. I didn't know then just how deep the cracks went, or how much blood money could cost. All I knew was this wasn't a welfare check anymore. This was the start of something darker, something that would test whether justice could survive against greed disguised as family loyalty. And for Margaret's sake, I intended to see it through.
At 3:06 a.m., the station smells like burnt coffee and wet wool. Rodriguez shepherds Claire into interview 2, the small one with the humming vent and the chair that wobbles if you lean left. I clock the wobble because people show you who they are when a room gets under their skin. She perches, knees together, hands folded, wedding band turned to hide a nick I hadn't clocked before. The raincoat looks more expensive under fluorescent lights. Money looks different when it's scared. If you're new to my cases, subscribe. I don't tell ghost stories. I tell the parts the press leaves out. Water? I ask. She nods, sips, rehearses. Walk me through your night again, I say. All of it. Start at dinner. Roast chicken, she says. He accused me of hiding money. He's been making withdrawals. She switches to past tense like it hurts. He said I was watching him. I said we should cancel the trip to Tahoe. He hated that. Time. 9-ish. What happened at 9:12? I slide her phone across the table, the last text glowing. We'll settle this tonight. She stares at it too long to be surprised by it. He sent that from the porch, she says. He left. By car. Yes. Alone. She stalls. I don't know. Did he take the knife that's missing from your block? Her eyes flick. That's the wobble I was waiting for. I must have put it in the dishwasher. We both know dishwashers don't eat knives and spit out emptiness. I let the silence stretch until it folds around her. Then I open the door and let Rodriguez in with a styrofoam cup and the friendly cop smile that disarms people who think they've prepared for one of us but not both. Before we go further, I say, you're not under arrest. You're free to leave. But if you stay and talk, you need to understand your rights. I read them anyway. I prefer my confessions clean. I think I should call a lawyer, she says. That's smart, Rodriguez says, and means it. Do you have one? She nods. Names a firm that advertises on billboards between injury attorneys and divorce promises. Rodriguez steps out to make the call. I gather her phone, sign it into evidence, hand her a receipt. She watches the formality like it's a ritual she didn't know she'd end up part of. In the hall, Santos catches me with a tablet balanced on food-stained fingers. Got the storage gate logs, he says. Maple secure. Keypad code used at 12:22 a.m. Unit registered to Aaron Lowell. Cameras dirt, rained on, but we've got the family sedan entering at 12:23, leaving at 12:46. And, get this, a second car tails in on someone else's code. Make on the tail. Late model Civic, black, temp tag flipped up. Driver's seat looks short. You'll love this, at 12:44, trunk on the sedan pops for 10 seconds. Something gets shifted. Angle's bad, but the blanket pattern matches what we found in your trunk alley. Unknown number on Claire's phone texted, same place, at 7:03, I say. Pull subscriber. Burner, he says, apologetic. Cash purchase, kiosk. Course it is. Who else hit the gate code? Unit next to Lowell's at 12:28. Registered to J. Pell. We're pulling that DMV now. Pull it faster. By 3:40 a.m., CSU calls from the house. We did a Blue Star pass in the kitchen, Dima says, voice blunt from too little sleep. Bleach wiped, but you can't erase micro. We've got a cast-off pattern on the cabinet near the sink, 2 arcs, low to mid-height. Drip trail toward the garage threshold. Also, impression on the island edge, hair and tissue consistent with a head strike. You missing a knife? The block's shy a chef's 8-inch. We found a bruise on his temple, I say. No spatter at the alley. What about drains? Shower trap has pink foam residue. Bleach plus hemoglobin. Somebody tried to make art. Zip ties. 2 cut ends in the garage trash with a brand stamp, hardware chain, bulk pack. We'll match. I thank her, hang up, stand a second with the sound of a household trying to forget what it did pulsing in my head. Domestic scenes are the same symphony in different keys. Clang, silence, hum, lie. Back in interview 2, Claire's lawyer sits beside her, cufflinks that say, I bill by the hour. He introduces himself as Martin Hale and tries to set the tone by tapping his pen like a metronome. Claire looks calmer now that she has someone to borrow a spine from. Ms. Lowell will give a brief statement, Hale says. She is grieving. Grief isn't a crime, I say. Help me understand your grief. Claire keeps her eyes on me. He gambled, she says quietly. He took money from our joint account. I confronted him. He yelled. He left. That's all. Did he ever threaten you? He threw things. He never hit me. Thrown what? Glasses. Once a phone. What about tonight? He slapped the counter, she says. He's dramatic. What time did you leave the house between 9 and 2? She looks to Hale. He clears his throat. My client won't be answering questions that suggest culpability for events she has no knowledge of. Did you go to Maple Secure Storage? I ask, ignoring the theater. Hale stiffens. Claire blinks once, slowly. Silence answers for both. Any reason your code would be used tonight? I ask. It's Aaron's unit, she says. He keeps old tax boxes. You texted an unknown number and address for Maple at 7:03 p.m., I say. Same place. Who were you directing there? Hale lifts a palm. You've impounded her phone, detective. We'll need to see what you're claiming before we respond. I nod. You'll see it in discovery. I stand. For your safety, and because you reported a missing person, we'll keep a patrol car on your block. Don't leave town. Hale bristles. Is my client under any restriction? She's under a shadow she can help lift, I say. That's not a restriction. That's an invitation. They leave. The wobble in the chair stops as the door clicks. Some rooms release you. Some follow you home. At 4:12 a.m., the medical examiner calls from a tiled universe where truth doesn't care about alibis. Prelim, Dr. Klein says. Male. 40s. Todd between 12:50 and 1:30. Cause looks like asphyxia, petechial hemorrhages in the eyes, ligature indentation that matches a wide tape or fabric gag. Blunt force to the right temporal region, subgaleal hematoma, but not fatal alone. Zip tie abrasions ante-mortem at wrists and ankles. Classic restraint. Defensive wounds. Minimal. A nick on the right palm like he grabbed a blade shallow. Adhesive residue across the lower face. You'll get my note by noon. Any bleach artifacts? Clothing smells like a janitor's closet. The body was washed and redressed. We'll fluoresce for trace. I hang up and stare at the wall clock that refuses to hurry. Asphyxia plus a clean scene says staging. The bruise at counter height says the kitchen took the first punch. The trunk says somebody didn't want him found where he died. The alley says someone wanted him found, period. Santos waves me into digital. Pizzeria camera gave us a gift, he says, scrubbing through jitter. Rain spiders across the image, then clears a slit as droplets sheet away. At 1:41 a.m., the sedan's brake lights smear red. The driver's door opens. A figure climbs out, hooded, slight. Gait on the toes, not the heels. A second figure peels from a Civic and hands the driver something. The Civic stays back, engine running. Our hooded figure circles to the trunk, fiddles 3 seconds, then flinches like the world got loud. Maybe a siren in the distance, maybe guilt, and bolts back into the driver's seat. The Civic follows the sedan out, hanging 2 cars behind until both disappear past frame. Freeze on the second figure, I say. Santos punches keys. The pixels do what pixels do. Lie with confidence. But the outline of a ponytail decides to be honest for 1 frame. Light hair, mid-back, baseball cap. A jacket with a logo I almost recognize. Not Claire's silhouette. Not her bob. The hair's too long. The height's wrong by 3 inches. The way she stands, hip cocked like she's bored and on schedule, that's not a wife seeing a body. That's a colleague moving product. Who's J. Pell? I ask. Santos spins his chair. DMV hit. Jenna Pell, 28. Lives in the building behind the storage. Works part-time at a place called Quick Clean Solutions. Professional cleaning crew, I say. Of course. The citrus chemical in the kitchen unspools in my head. People hire expertise when they're in over their heads. Or when they planned to be. Rodriguez sticks her head in. Neighbor at the Lowells just woke up and remembered something, she says. At 10:30, a black Civic idled by their driveway. Driver had music low, window cracked. When the neighbor walked the dog past, the driver turned the face away. Blonde ponytail under a cap. Get me Pell's photo, I say. And a warrant for her unit. And quick clean. And every camera within 4 blocks of Maple Secure. And the wife? Rodriguez asks. She's not our only suspect, I say. But she's the one who set the table. At 5:03 a.m., I step back into the rain that started this night and look up at a sky trying to decide whether morning is a good idea. Somewhere a janitor is buying more bleach. Somewhere a gambler's debt ledger is balancing itself. Somewhere a burner phone is vibrating on a cheap laminate nightstand. Aaron's last text said, "We'll settle this tonight." Somebody did. The bill just hasn't come due yet. The sun hadn't broken yet, but the city was already stirring when we hit Pell's apartment. Third floor walk up, peeling green door, the kind of hallway that smells like boiled cabbage and cigarettes ground into linoleum. Rodriguez knocks soft first, then loud. No answer. Her hand hovers near her belt. I nod, she kicks. The frame splinters, door swings wide, and the apartment exhales bleach so strong it burns my eyes. Inside looks staged the way a hotel room looks staged. Bed made military tight, counters bare, trash bin empty except for a folded plastic wrapper from a bulk pack of zip ties. The kitchen sink drips into silence. On the table, a half-empty bottle of citrus cleaner, gloves still damp. Pell is gone, but her ghost lingers in the smell. We move quick. Rodriguez bags the zip tie wrapper. I sift the table drawers. One holds bills, unpaid, paper-clipped by month. Another holds a burner phone, battery removed but still warm, like it was pulled moments before. That heat tells me Pell heard us coming or left knowing we would come soon. Either way, she's one step ahead for now. Santos calls in from the lab. Got a match on the logo jacket from the alley video. Quick clean solutions. Pell's shift logs show her clocking in yesterday at 6:15 p.m., clocking out 1:02 a.m. But camera outside the office shows her never went in. Someone else clocked her card. Alibi built, I mutter. Amateur hour. Rodriguez finds a receipt pinned by a magnet on the fridge. Gas station 2 blocks from the Lowells, she says. Timestamp, 10:41 p.m. purchase. Bleach, gloves, and energy drink. Camera there will give us a face. We canvass the bedroom. Closet has uniforms pressed flat. Under the bed, a duffel bag half-zipped. Inside, rolls of plastic sheeting, duct tape, more gloves. Rodriguez whistles low. She wasn't improvising. Not just a cleaner by trade. Cleaner by side gig too. By 6:10 a.m., we're back at the station with CSU combing Pell's apartment. I grab burnt coffee, sit with Rodriguez, watch the monitors as Santos scrubs through the gas station feed. At 10:41, Pell steps up to the counter, hair tucked under a cap. No attempt at disguise beyond casual boredom. She signs a receipt with a flourish, camera catching her profile sharp. Confirmation, not discovery. But she isn't alone. A second figure lingers near the door, eyes on the parking lot. Female, shorter, dark bob under a hood. The timestamp puts her with Pell when the supplies were bought. Claire. No lawyer, no interview room alibi can bleach that out. Rodriguez leans back, cracks her neck. So the wife buys her own husband's grave goods. Doesn't look good on a jury slide. Doesn't mean she swung the blade, I say. But it means she opened the door. At 7 a.m., I'm back at the Lowell residence with a fresh warrant. The house feels different now. Emptier, exposed, like it knows the mask is off. We move room by room, photographing, swabbing. In the master bedroom closet, tucked behind shoes, I find a box labeled Winter. Inside, a bloodied men's shirt balled tight, bleach-streaked but still telling its story. Collar ripped. Buttons gone. On the nightstand, a handwritten list in Claire's script. Groceries, it says at the top, but the items read like a playbook. Bleach, gloves, tape, energy drink. Same order as Pell's duffel bag. In the garage, CSU hits on trace blood in the drain. A small pool diluted but stubborn. The missing knife is still absent, but a butcher block in Pell's apartment had a fresh slot empty. Puzzle pieces starting to complain they fit too well. By mid-morning, the press starts circling. Word leaks fast when uniforms swarm suburbs. Cameras perch at the edge of the driveway, reporters asking if Aaron Lowell's disappearance is suspicious. Rodriguez mutters, suspicious like fire at a gas station. We hold the line, active investigation, no details, but the eyes are there, and Claire knows it when she pulls up in Hale's Mercedes. Hair perfect, sunglasses on, mouth tight. She doesn't look at the cameras, doesn't look at me, Just walks past into the house she knows she may not walk back out of. Hale storms up. "Detective, you're harassing my client. You have no grounds for this circus." I hand him the warrant. "We've got grounds stacked higher than your billable hours, counselor. She's free to go if she wants." He reads fast, curses low. Claire emerges minutes later, pale but steady. She doesn't ask what we found. That's answer enough. At 11:20, Santos cracks Pell's burner. Last number dialed, an out-of-state line tied to a collection agency that doubles as a front for a gambling outfit we've seen in 3 prior cases. Debts. Erin's gambling wasn't just hobby, it was a hook. Pell wasn't freelancing. She was paid, or threatened, or both. That makes motive sideways. Claire might have wanted Erin gone, but Pell had her own reasons for making it messy. And maybe somebody higher up wanted it done loud enough to send a message. At noon, Dr. Klein delivers another call. Autopsy confirm, ligature strangulation. Pattern consistent with industrial tape, wide adhesive. Bruising under gag matches Pell's supply bag tape. Cod locked. Also, his stomach contents, half-digested chicken. Matches your wife's dinner timeline. So, fight at 9. Dead by 1. 4 hours for a marriage to collapse into murder. I drive past Maple Secure Storage on the way back. Patrol units have the gate taped, cameras updated. Unit J, 17, Pell's, is still sealed, warrant pending. I stand at the chain link, peer in at rows of metal doors under humming sodium lights. Storage facilities always feel like graveyards with rent due. Somewhere behind one of those doors is a piece that ties Pell's roll to Claire's hand. Rodriguez joins me, sipping convenience coffee. "What's your gut?" she asks. "Claire wanted him gone," I say. Pell knew how to make it happen. The Civic was backup. Somebody else bankrolled it, maybe tied to his debts. We're not looking at a domestic gone wrong. We're looking at a cleanup job that got sloppy. "Sloppy enough to land a body in the trunk," she says. "Or staged that way," I counter. People who want a message sent don't hide bodies. They plant them where they'll be found. She nods. So who was the message for? That's the question that sticks with me as the day leans toward afternoon. Claire plays the grieving widow with cameras outside her house. Pell vanishes with a bag of cleaners and a burner phone trail leading to debts and shadows. And Erin sits in a drawer at the morgue, his secrets bleeding into evidence bags. By 2 p.m., warrant signed, we crack open Pell's storage unit. Inside, plastic bins labeled tools, supplies, and one taped shut with industrial tape identical to the ligature. CSU slices it open. Inside, the missing chef's knife, blade stained faint pink, handle wiped but still textured for prints. A rag soaked with dried blood. And a folder of documents, gambling slips, loan statements, debt signed under Erin Lowell's name. Amounts circled in red. 6 figures. "Pressure point," Rodriguez says, flipping through. Somebody wanted their money back. But then I find something else. Folded in the back, a photograph. Claire and Pell together at a fundraiser gala 2 years back, both smiling, drinks in hand. Not strangers. Not recent acquaintances. Old ties hiding in plain sight. Which means this isn't just debt collection. It's collaboration. And it leaves me with a sharper question than motive. Who actually killed Erin? His wife, his cleaner, or the debts that swallowed them both? The city clock strikes 3, and the case ticks louder with it. By late afternoon the sky had gone pewter, the kind of dull lid that makes the city feel smaller. Pell's storage unit had given us the knife and the gambling slips, but it also gave us something messier, a connection between Claire and Pell that predated last night. That photo from the gala sat heavy in my pocket as we set up a timeline on the squad room board. Rodriguez drew lines, Santos pinned printouts, and the story grew a spine. 9 p.m., argument at the Lowell house. 10:41 p.m., Pell and Claire on gas station camera buying supplies. 12:22 a.m., Pell's code opens Maple Secure Gate. 12:23 to 12:46, sedan and Civic at unit. Trunk activity. 1:40 a.m., sedan parks in alley, trunk pops. 2:13 a.m., I open the trunk. Erin's dead. Rodriguez capped her marker. Everything points to them running this together. Claire had motive, Pell had method. I looked at the board, but my eyes kept circling that photo. Claire's hand on Pell's shoulder, Pell's easy grin. Comfortable. Familiar. Not transactional like a cleaner and a client. Something else. At 4:20 p.m., CSU dropped the lab rush. Partial prints on the knife hilt, too smudged to call but not errands. Zip tie ends from Pell's trash matched the brand at the scene. And a bleach bottle from Pell's apartment bore a thumbprint that matched Claire's right hand. The walls were closing in fast. I wanted Pell before she knew how loud the walls were. Rodriguez and I split, canvassing her haunts. Quick Clean Solutions hadn't seen her all day. Her sister hadn't either. At 6 o'clock, Santos pinged her burner again. It connected for 20 seconds off a cell tower near the interstate, then went dark. Heading out or pretending to. We widened the circle. Traffic cams showed a black Civic pulling cash at an ATM 20 miles north. The driver's face obscured by a baseball cap, but the height and posture screamed Pell. She was running, but she wasn't running smart. While patrol chased that thread, I went back to Claire. Sometimes when you don't have the hammer yet, you lean with words and see what cracks. Hale met me at the station doors, puffed and indignant. Claire followed, sunglasses still on though it was dusk. "Detective," Hale snapped, "my client is done being paraded. Unless you're charging her, she leaves." "Then she won't mind answering one question on record," I said. "She minds," he shot back. Claire, though, tilted her head. "What question?" I slid the photo across the table. Claire and Pell, side by side at that gala. "How long have you known Jenna Pell?" The pause was too practiced. "I don't," she said flatly. "Then who's in this picture with you?" She studied it like it was a stranger. "I attend a lot of events. People pose with me. I don't keep track. Her apartment has your prints. Her trunk has your husband. You want to try that again?" Hale cut in. "Detective, this is harassment. Unless you have an indictment." Claire stood, sliding the photo back across the table. "My husband gambled. My husband lied. If he crossed dangerous people, that's not my crime. I want to grieve in peace." She walked out. Hale followed, still barking about due process, but I wasn't listening. Because for the first time I'd seen Claire rattled, mask slipping, just enough to show that fear had joined the performance. At 7:15 p.m., patrol finally got lucky. A traffic cam picked Pell's Civic turning into an industrial park near the river. Units rolled in, boxed her at a dead end. She tried to run, but adrenaline doesn't outrun K9. Minutes later she was cuffed, dirt smeared on her cheek, jacket torn. In her bag, rolls of tape, fresh gloves, and the missing phone battery. Back at the station, Pell looked smaller under the lights, but not broken. Rodriguez started soft, offering water, warmth. Pell smirked. "Save it. I know how this goes." "You don't know how Erin's story goes," I said, sliding the photos, trunk, knife, her Civic. "You want us to write you in as the killer, or you want to talk about Claire?" She looked at the trunk photo too long, then shrugged. "I clean messes. That's it." "Whose mess?" "No comment." "You moved the body," I pressed. "You bought supplies with Claire. She dragged you in deeper. Why cover for her?" Pell leaned back, eyes sharp. "Because Claire's not the one you need to worry about. Erin owed people. Big. They wanted him gone, and they wanted her scared. I just made sure it got done neat." "That bruise on his head. The knife. That looked neat to you." "Claire lost her nerve," Pell said. "Tried to fight him. I walked in after. He was bleeding. She was screaming. I finished it so neither of them dragged it out worse." Her voice didn't shake. Like she was describing a spill, not a murder. Rodriguez shot me a look. We'd expected denial. We got a confession, but one designed to shield Claire. "You strangled him?" I asked. "I stopped him breathing," Pell said. "That's what you wanted to hear, right? So write it down." She folded her arms. Done. At 9 p.m., Dr. Klein confirmed again. Cause of death was ligature strangulation. Pell's words fit the science. Case could close with her. But the bleach thumbprint, the gas station video, the gala photo, they still tied Claire in. Pell was shouldering the fall, but for who? By 10:30, Pell was booked. Claire went home in Hale's car, cameras flashing her pale face as she vanished behind tinted glass. And I sat in the squad room with the board glowing under cheap bulbs, lines connecting debts to blood to bleach. Pell confessed, but too neatly. Claire denied, but too coldly. Somewhere in the middle was the truth, a husband with debts, a wife with motive, and a cleaner who called herself professional while dragging a body into an alley. At midnight, the phone rang again. Santos. Detective, you're gonna want to see this. We pulled data off Pell's burner. Last deleted photo recovered, a shot of Claire, taken inside Pell's apartment 2 nights ago. Looks cozy. Wine glasses on the table. They weren't just acquaintances. So Pell hadn't just cleaned for Claire. She'd been inside her life, maybe inside her bed. And suddenly the motive tilted again. Maybe this wasn't just debt. Maybe it was jealousy, partnership, or a plan that went bad when the wrong person lost control. The city outside was silent, but my case had only gotten louder. The photo Santos dug up sat glowing on my monitor, pixelated but sharp enough. Claire on Pell's couch, glass of red in hand, smiling loose in a way I hadn't seen her smile anywhere else in this case. Pell leaned in with her own glass, heads nearly touching. Not the smile of a client. The smile of someone who thought she belonged. I stared at it long enough for my coffee to go cold. Affairs are gasoline on crime scenes. They warp motives, rewrite timelines, explain why people risk everything. If Claire and Pell were entangled, Aaron's death wasn't just about debts, it was about clearing space. Rodriguez came in with 2 sandwiches, dropped one by my elbow. So they were more than friends, she said, eyeing the photo. Looks that way. You think Pell confessed because she's protecting Claire? Or because they planned it together and she's taking the whole fall? We chewed in silence a moment. The hum of the vending machine felt louder than it should. At 1 a.m., I walked back to the holding cells. Pell sat on her cot, knees up, chin on arms. She looked younger without the bravado. Nice picture, I said, sliding the photo against the bars. Her eyes flicked to it, then to me. Not your business. It's my case. Makes it my business. She leaned back, sighing. We had drinks. Big deal. You had more than drinks. Her jaw tightened. So what if we did? That doesn't change what happened. It changes everything. You weren't cleaning for Claire. You were with her. You confessed to protect her because you love her. That's not professional loyalty. That's personal. Silence. Then, Claire didn't kill him, she said low. I did. She froze. She cried. She begged me to fix it. So I did. I leaned closer. And the bleach thumbprint? The grocery list in her handwriting? The gas station footage? You expect a jury to believe she was just crying in the corner while you did it all. Her eyes hardened again. Believe what you want. I'm done talking. And she was. Not another word until dawn. At 7:30 a.m., the DA's office wanted a briefing. They liked Pell's confession but wanted Claire too. Insurance, leverage, optics. 2 women tied together, 1 dead husband, 6-figure debts. It sold itself. But to make it stick we needed more than photos and suspicion. We needed proof Claire had her hands on the murder, not just the mop-up. So we went hunting. At 9 o'clock, CSU cracked Pell's Civic. Under the passenger seat they found a small flash drive taped to the frame. Encrypted. Santos spent 3 hours picking at it, finally prying it open. Inside, a folder of texts and call logs pulled from Claire's phone, backups Pell must have made during one of her visits. And in those texts, dated 2 weeks ago, Claire wrote, "If Aaron keeps gambling, we'll lose everything. Maybe it's better if he just disappears." Pell's reply, "That's not the kind of thing you text, Claire." Claire again, "You know what I mean. You handle problems." Rodriguez whistled when she read it. "That's conspiracy. That's solicitation. That's Claire handing her the idea." It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was the kind of kindling prosecutors love. At 1:15 p.m., I drove out to the Lowell house with a warrant for Claire's electronics. Hale tried to block me on the porch, waving his arms, threatening injunctions. I stepped past him. Claire sat in the kitchen, pale, staring at the table like she'd been waiting for me. "Detective Vega," she said quietly. "Do you think I'm stupid?" "Depends," I said, opening my evidence bag. "Stupid people don't wipe their phones, but smart people forget to back up their texts to the cloud." Her lips parted just slightly, a tell. Hale barked at me to stop, but she waved him quiet. "You don't understand," she said. "Help me, then," I answered. "Because right now it looks like you and Pell planned your husband's death together." Her hands trembled on the table edge. "I wanted out," she whispered. "Out of the gambling, out of the lies. Jenna said she could make it stop. I thought she meant talk to someone, scare him straight. I didn't," she broke off, biting her lip. "I didn't know she'd go that far." I set the photo on the table. "You knew Jenna. You trusted her. You gave her a list. You bought supplies with her. That's not ignorance, Claire. That's participation." Tears welled but didn't fall. "You think I killed him? I think you helped make it possible." Hale slammed his hand on the counter. "Detective, this interrogation ends now. It didn't matter. I'd already heard enough to push for charges." Claire's words weren't a confession, but they painted complicity in broad strokes. By 3 p.m., she was in a different cell than Pell, both women held without bail while the DA drafted charges. Cameras crowded the courthouse steps, hungry for the headline, "Wife and Cleaner Arrested in Husband's Murder." But the puzzle still bothered me. Pell strangled Aaron. Claire wanted him gone. That fit. But why dump the body in an alley trunk instead of hiding it? Why leave it to be found within hours? At 6 o'clock, Santos gave me another answer. The flash drive had one more folder, hidden deep. Audio files. Pell had been recording conversations with Claire. Insurance, leverage, maybe even blackmail. I played the latest. Claire's voice, tight and shaking. "You promised it wouldn't be messy." "Pell, messy is what happens when you freeze. Don't worry, no one will find him." "Claire, where is he?" Pell laughs softly. "Close enough to scare you." The timestamp. 1 hour before I found Aaron in the trunk. Pell hadn't just killed for Claire. She'd staged the discovery as a leash, to keep Claire under control. To own her. And suddenly I saw the alley not as sloppiness but as theater. A body in the trunk wasn't a mistake. It was a message. Not just to Claire. Maybe to whoever Aaron owed. Maybe to me. By midnight, the rain had started again, slicking the streets clean, washing the day down the drains. Claire cried in her cell. Pell slept like stone. And I sat at my desk listening to that recording over and over, wondering which of them was truly in charge. Because if Pell had staged the body, maybe she wasn't just cleaning up for Claire. Maybe she was cleaning house for herself. The storm rolled through overnight, hammering the city with sheets of water that turned alleys into streams and washed chalk outlines into blurred smudges. By morning, the station felt hungover. Rodriguez slid a stale donut my way, eyes on the wallboard where Pell and Claire's names sat underlined in red. "DA's office is leaning toward joint indictment," she said. "Conspiracy, murder 1, tampering." "Convenient," I muttered. "But it doesn't explain the trunk." She shrugged. "Juries don't care about explanations if you hand them recordings and text messages." Maybe she was right. But something gnawed at me. Pell's audio recording, her insurance policy, wasn't just leverage over Claire. It was a flex. Like she wanted us to know she could choreograph a crime scene. At 9 a.m., Hale stormed into the station again, tie askew, eyes red. "You're destroying a family," he shouted in the lobby, cameras trailing him. "Claire is innocent. She was manipulated by a criminal." I pulled him into an interview room, shut the door, let him vent. When he stopped for breath, I asked, if Pell manipulated her, why did Claire buy bleach and tape with her? Why did Claire text about wanting her husband gone? Hale's face flushed. Words said in frustration aren't evidence of intent. She was venting. "You've never said something you didn't mean." I didn't answer. Because words can be weapons, and sometimes they're sharper than knives. At 10:30, CSU turned in fresh lab results. The rag from Pell's storage bin had both Aaron's blood and Claire's skin cells, sweat and epithelial. A tug of war over the weapon, maybe. Or Claire helping wipe it down. Either way, she wasn't just in the room. She was in the act. At noon, I went back to Pell. She looked rested, too rested for a woman staring at life behind bars. "You wanted Aaron dead for Claire?" I asked. She smirked. "You think love makes people kill? Sometimes it does. Not this time." She leaned forward, voice low. Aaron owed money. They were going to take it out of Claire next. "I did her a favor." "Who's they?" "Names won't matter. You'll never prove it." "You put him in the trunk," I said. Her smirk widened. "I put him where everyone could see. That's how you pay debts. Make sure the message lands." She leaned back again, calm as water. Claire wanted him gone. I wanted her safe. And the people he owed? They wanted a billboard. Everybody wins. Except him. Her honesty felt rehearsed, like she was feeding me just enough to keep the spotlight on her. At 2 p.m., Santos brought me something new. A surveillance grab from the pizzeria alley the night of the murder. Between 1:43 and 1:45 a.m., two silhouettes lingered by the Civic. One was Pell. The other wasn't Claire. It was a man. Broad shoulders, cigarette glow bright in the dark. He handed Pell something, then walked off. I froze the frame, leaned in. Not enough detail for a face, but the posture screamed seasoned. Someone comfortable in alleys at night. Someone with business there. Debt collector. Rodriguez guessed. Or handler, I said. If Pell was working off Aaron's debt, she wasn't freelancing. Someone else had ordered the trunk theater. By 5 o'clock, Claire cracked. Tears, trembling, begging Hale to cut a deal. "I didn't touch him," she swore. "I just wanted it over. Jenna promised me it would be clean." She promised. I watched from the other side of the glass, her words muffled but body language loud. She wasn't lying about fear. Whether it was fear of Pell, of debts, or of herself, I couldn't yet say. At 7:15, Pell asked for me again. "They'll bury me," she said calmly. "But you should know, Claire wasn't supposed to see anything. I told her to leave. She stayed. That was her mistake. She made it messy. You strangled him. I finished it. You staged him in the trunk. I made sure the right people knew the debt was settled." "Who paid you?" She smiled, eyes unreadable. "Think bigger, detective. I don't just mop floors. I handle problems." That's why she trusted me. At 9 p.m., the DA drafted charges against both women. Conspiracy. Murder 1. Abuse of a corpse. But as I sat at my desk staring at the wallboard, the pieces refused to settle. Claire's grief looked real, but her actions tied her in. Pell's confession looked clean, but too clean, like it had been rehearsed for months. And that man in the alley. He didn't fit either woman's story. By midnight, rain slicked the streets again. Pell slept in her cell. Claire cried in hers. And I sat awake, wondering if I was about to hand a case neatly wrapped to the DA, while the real puppeteer walked free under the cover of the storm. Because a trunk wasn't just a hiding place. It was a stage. And the play wasn't over yet. The rain broke by dawn, leaving the city raw and shining, streets glistening like open wounds. I hadn't slept. The image of that cigarette glow by the Civic kept looping in my head. 2 women in custody, 1 body in a trunk, and a phantom man who handed Pell something before walking off into the dark. Cases don't like loose ends, but this one had enough to knit a sweater. At 8 a.m., Rodriguez slid into the squad room with 2 coffees and her usual bluntness. "DA's ready to run with what we've got," she said. "They want to arraign both Pell and Claire today. Sell it as lovers in conspiracy, dead husband, debts on the side." "It's too neat," I muttered. She arched an eyebrow. "Neat plays well in court. Neat doesn't explain our man in the alley." Before she could argue, Santos burst in, tablet glowing in his hands. "Got something," he said. Cross-referenced Pell's burner with tower pings around the time of the murder. Guess what? Another phone was bouncing off the same towers, in sequence, like a shadow. He pulled up the map. Blue dots for Pell, red dots for the shadow phone. Both moved from Claire's house to the gas station, then to Maple Storage, then the alley. Who owns it? I asked. Santos grinned without humor. Registered to a shell company. But trace long enough and it lands in the lap of a guy named Victor Hanley. The name hit like a weight. Hanley was no small-time collector. He was a fixer for a mid-level loan shark outfit, the kind that turned gambling debts into lifetime contracts. So Aaron's debts bought him a tail, Rodriguez said. Not just a tail, I corrected. A witness. Maybe even a director. At 10:30, I walked into Pell's cell. She looked bored, chewing on her lip, but her eyes sharpened when she saw me. Victor Hanley, I said. Her face didn't move, but the silence stretched tight. He was in the alley, I continued. Camera caught him. His phone followed you all night. So if you want to keep playing the martyr for Claire, think again. Hanley doesn't share the stage. Her mouth curved, half smile, half warning. Careful, detective. Some debts don't belong in court. You think he'll protect you? I leaned close. Hanley doesn't protect anyone. He uses them. Aaron's gone. Claire's breaking. You're the last one standing. Guess who takes the fall when he cleans his books? Her eyes flickered then, a crack in the calm. Help me, I pressed. Give me Hanley. You want to survive this, that's your ticket. She looked away, voice low. I don't talk about Victor. Not if I want to breathe. At noon, Claire was brought to arraignment. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions she ignored. She looked small, swallowed by Hale's presence. The judge set bail at $500,000, unreachable with frozen accounts. She was going nowhere. Back at the station, Santos dug deeper. Hanley's Civic wasn't just caught on traffic cams. At 12:44 a.m., a convenience store camera caught him stepping out, buying cigarettes and gum. Same jacket, same build. The timestamp put him within 5 minutes of the storage unit stop. We had him. But having and proving are two different beasts. At 3 p.m., I got the call I half expected, an anonymous tip line ping. Male voice, disguised, saying, Detective Vega, leave Pell where she is. She's done enough cleaning. Dig further and you'll end up in the same trunk as Lowell. Click. Rodriguez swore when I played it back. That's Hanley, she said. I nodded. The cadence, the arrogance, it fit. But tips are smoke unless you grab the fire. By 6 o'clock, I had a plan. If Pell wouldn't give me Hanley, maybe Hanley would show his hand himself. Men like him can't resist tying off loose ends, especially when one's locked in a cell with a mouth that might loosen. We staged a rumor, let it slip through controlled channels that Pell was considering a deal, flipping her statement. By 10 p.m., the bait was out there. All we had to do was wait. At midnight, Santos flagged activity. Hanley's phone pinged near the station. A black Civic rolled slow past the back entrance, headlights dimmed. He was checking the walls, making sure his asset was still contained. I stood at the window, watching the car drift by, cigarette glowing faintly in the driver's seat. For a second our eyes met through the glass, though I knew he couldn't see me clearly. Still, my gut said he knew exactly where I was. The Civic turned the corner and disappeared. Cat's sniffing the trap, Rodriguez muttered. Good, I said. Now we make him step in it. But sleep didn't come that night. Because Hanley wasn't just circling Pell. He was circling me. And predators don't circle unless they're planning to strike. By dawn, the case wasn't about Claire's guilt or Pell's confession anymore. It was about whether Victor Hanley had written the whole play, and how many more acts he planned before the curtain fell. The next morning broke sharp and cold, the kind of winter air that cuts your lungs and makes the city smell metallic. I'd been up all night replaying the alley footage. Hanley's face turned just enough for me to know he wasn't worried about being caught on camera. Men like that don't fear exposure. They count on it, like a brand burned into the world. At 7:30 a.m., Rodriguez and I sat in the squad room staring at the board. Claire, Pell, Aaron, debts, bleach, trunk, Hanley. Red strings crisscrossed like a web, but the center was empty. No clear spider. Santos wandered in with his tablet and a mug that said "World's Okayest Hacker." "Got movement," he said. "Hanley's Civic parked overnight at a warehouse by the river. It's on lease to a logistics company that's been flagged twice for suspicious shipments. Guess what's in the back lot? 2 vans registered to Shell Corps that tie back to the same loan outfit Aaron owed." Rodriguez snorted. "Whole circus in one tent." I rubbed my eyes. If Hanley was directing Pell, that warehouse is the theater. But we don't walk in without a warrant. "Probable cause?" she asked. "Anonymous threat call, debt links, surveillance overlap. Judge might sign it." By 10 o'clock we had paper. At 11:15 a.m. tactical team rolled quiet down the block, vests under jackets, unmarked vans idling like shadows. Rodriguez and I followed on foot. The warehouse smelled of diesel and rust, tin roof popping in the cold. We breached the side door, flashlights cutting through stacks of pallets and crates. Empty but not abandoned. On a folding table sat a pack of cigarettes, still warm, and a burner phone vibrating against the metal. Rodriguez grabbed it, hit speaker. A voice came through, Hanley's, smooth, amused. "Detective Vega. You found my office." I froze, scanning the rafters. "Where are you, Victor?" "Close enough to know you're trespassing." A chuckle. "You should have left Pell alone. She did her job. Aaron's debt is paid. But you keep tugging, and debts multiply." "You used her," I said. "I use everyone. That's what debts are for. Your widow, your cleaner, even you. You think you're outside the game, but you're not. You're just playing a different piece." The line went dead. Rodriguez cursed under her breath. "He's watching us." We swept fast, found no one. Cameras tucked in corners blinked at us, their wires snaking to a dark DVR. We bagged it, hoping for a lead. By 2 p.m., Santos cracked the DVR. Footage showed Pell in the warehouse 3 nights before the murder, meeting Hanley. "He slid papers across the table," she signed. Next clip, Claire entering timidly, Pell guiding her like a guest. Hanley stood behind, arms folded, smiling. No audio, but body language loud. Claire nervous, Pell reassuring, Hanley orchestrating. Rodriguez leaned back, exhaling. So it wasn't just Pell. Claire walked in with eyes open. Hanley pitched the plan. Aaron's gambling debt turned into a contract kill. "Not a clean one," I muttered. "He wanted the body found. Trunk as billboard. Claire as the lesson." At 4:30, I confronted Claire with stills from the warehouse video. She sagged against the table, mascara smudging. "He said it was a warning," she whispered. "That if Aaron didn't pay, I'd pay. I didn't agree to killing him. I thought, God help me, I thought Jenna would scare him. That's all. Hanley doesn't scare. He buries," I said. Her lawyer tried to cut in, but she was unraveling too fast. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "Jenna loved me. She said she'd fix it. I never wanted Aaron dead. I just wanted out. It didn't matter in the eyes of the law. Intent mixed with action, and she'd crossed the line. But her words told me the real hierarchy. Claire was pawn. Pell thought she was knight. Hanley was king. At 7 o'clock, Pell asked for me again. She looked different now, tired, eyes rimmed red. "He's going to come for me," she said flatly. "Hanley." She nodded. "I didn't stage that trunk for him. That was for me. To show Claire what I could do. To keep her close. He didn't like it. He doesn't like freelancers." "You want protection." "I want out," she said. "But out isn't real. You know that." I leaned in. "Then give me Hanley. Witness protection, new name, new state. That's real." Her eyes flickered, the first spark of hope I'd seen. "You promise?" "On paper," I said. "But I need proof. Hard proof." She swallowed. "He keeps ledgers. Real ones, not digital. Green books. If you find them, you'll have every debt he's ever owned. Including Aaron's." "Where?" She hesitated, then, Warehouse mezzanine. Behind the office wall panel. He thinks no one knows. By midnight, warrant in hand, we hit the warehouse again. Dust thick in the air, shadows stretching long. I pried at the panel behind the office desk, wood groaning until it snapped free. Behind it sat a metal box. Inside, 3 green ledgers, worn, pages dense with names, dates, amounts. One page circled in red, Aaron Lowell, $146,000. Beside it, scrawled, Resolved, VH1 13th. The date of his death. Rodriguez exhaled, steady. We've got him. But I wasn't so sure. Because as I flipped further, I found more names, some with Resolved stamped, others still open. And one name circled twice, Jenna Pell. Amount, $38,000. Date unresolved. I stared at it. Pell hadn't just worked for Hanley. She'd owed him too. Which meant her confession, her loyalty to Claire, her staged trunk, all of it was layered under the simplest motive of all. Survival. And Hanley still had plenty of pages left to balance. The ledgers sat heavy on the table in the squad room, pages filled with names that whispered like ghosts. Aaron Lowell's debt was stamped Resolved in Hanley's scrawl, but Pell's name jumped at me twice, circled hard enough to dent the paper. 38 grand owed. That made her not just an accomplice. She was leverage, a pawn in Hanley's hand from the start. At 7 a.m., I walked back to her cell. She was awake, sitting on the edge of her cot, rubbing her wrists where the cuffs had bitten. When I slid the ledger across the bars, her face drained. He owned you, I said. Her jaw tightened. Everyone owes somebody. You weren't just cleaning up Claire's mess. You were paying down your own. She looked away, but her silence was answer enough. Hanley set this whole thing up, I pressed. Aaron's debt, your debt, Claire's desperation. He built a stage, and you danced on it. Her hands balled into fists. You think I don't know that? You think I wanted this? You confessed to protect Claire, but the truth is you were protecting yourself. Because if Hanley thought you talked, you'd end up in the next trunk. Her eyes snapped back to mine, blazing. And I still might. By 9 o'clock, the DA's office was buzzing. The ledgers gave us probable cause for organized crime charges. But Hanley wasn't stupid. He'd bury himself before letting us drag him in alive. Rodriguez leaned over my desk. So what's the play? We've got Claire breaking down, Pell cornered, and Hanley circling like a shark. You really think Pell will testify? If we can keep her breathing long enough, I said. At 11 o'clock, I sat down with Claire again. She looked worse than Pell, eyes hollow, hair limp, makeup smudged from another night of crying. When I showed her the ledger page with Aaron's debt, she touched it like it might burn her. They killed him for this, she whispered. No, I corrected. They killed him to settle it. To make sure everyone knew Hanley collects what he's owed. She shook her head, tears spilling. I didn't want this. I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted peace. Then help me, I said. Testify. Put Pell and Hanley where they belong. She flinched. Jenna loved me. Jenna loved herself, I shot back. And Hanley owned her. Whatever you thought you had, it was built on debt. At 1 p.m., the tactical team raided the warehouse again, sweeping deeper this time. They found another stash, burner phones, rolls of cash, a half-dozen plates for stolen cars. But Hanley himself was gone. He'd ghosted, like men in his trade do when heat rises. At 3:30, Santos flagged traffic cams. Hanley's Civic spotted 2 towns over, heading toward the state line. We had him for maybe an hour before the plate swap would kill the trail. I called the DA. We need to move on Pell. Flip her before Hanley disappears. The green light came. By 5 o'clock, I was back in Pell's cell, sitting across from her at the interview table. Rodriguez leaned in the corner, arms crossed. You're looking at life, I told her. Claire's already cracking. Hanley's already running. You're next on the chopping block, whether it's the DA or Hanley who gets there first. But you've got one card left. Witness protection. New name. New start. If you testify. She stared at the table, silent. 38,000, I pressed, sliding the ledger page across. "That's what you owed him. You think he'll forgive that? You think he'll let you breathe once this case hits the news?" Her voice was hoarse when it finally came. "You can't protect me from him." "Try me," I said. "But I need him. Give me Hanley." She looked up, eyes rimmed with something halfway between fear and defiance. "He meets people at the docks. Pier 17. Tonight. Midnight. He'll be there to ship out. He trusts no one but himself. If you want him, that's where." Rodriguez straightened. "Sounds like a setup." "Maybe it is," I said. "But it's all we've got." By 8 p.m., we had a task force prepped, SWAT vans, unmarked cars, agents in plain clothes. The riverfront was dark, gulls screeching, water slapping against pilings. Pier 17 stretched out like a finger pointing at nothing, warehouses looming silent on either side. We set the net wide. Units at both ends. Snipers on rooftops. Rodriguez and I in an unmarked, eyes on the pier. Midnight ticked closer. At 11:52, headlights appeared. A black Civic rolled slow onto the pier, stopping near a container. The driver stepped out. Victor Hanley, cigarette glowing, jacket collar turned up against the wind. He stood there like he owned the river. I felt my pulse in my throat. "All units, stand by," I whispered into the radio. Hanley flicked his cigarette, then opened the trunk of the Civic. He pulled out a duffel bag, heavy with cash or something worse. Looked around. Waited. 11:58. Another car approached. A silver sedan. My gut clenched when I saw who stepped out. Not another debt collector. Claire Lowell. "What the hell?" Rodriguez hissed. Claire walked up to Hanley, coat wrapped tight, face pale but determined. They spoke, too far for mics to catch, but their body language said plenty. She was pleading. He was smiling. Then he put a hand on her shoulder. And she didn't pull away. Rodriguez swore. "She's in deeper than we thought." "Not deeper," I muttered. "Owned." At midnight sharp, Hanley reached into the duffel, pulled out a folder, and handed it to Claire. She clutched it like it was her lifeline. I had no idea what was inside. But I knew one thing. Claire wasn't just a victim anymore. She was part of whatever game Hanley was still playing. And the game wasn't over. It was just getting louder. Rodriguez's knuckles went white around the binoculars. "She's alone," she whispered. "No lawyer. No backup." Hanley leaned in close to Claire, wind tugging at his collar, the river slapping pilings like a metronome. He tapped the folder, said something that made her flinch, then nodded toward the water, like he was reminding her what happens to people who disappoint him. "Now," I said, and keyed the radio. "Go." The pier lit with movement. Unmarks rolled from the shadows, doors opening in a choreography we'd rehearsed 100 times, boots hitting wood, the rip of commands in stereo, "Police! Hands where we can see them!" echoing off corrugated steel. Hanley didn't spook. He smiled. That told me two things. He'd expected us, and he'd come anyway. Men like him believe they can bargain with gravity. "Victor!" I called, stepping into the light, palms open, stance low. "Drop the bag. Step away from her." He pivoted, eyes taking a quick inventory of our angles, then set the duffel down like he was humoring a child. Claire kept her hands up, trembling. The folder hung from her fingers. "What's in the folder, Claire?" I asked, never taking my eyes off him. Her voice shook. "An affidavit. He said if I signed it, he could make this go away." She swallowed. "Said I'd say you coerced me. That Jenna acted alone. That I was hysterical. Witness tampering, Victor," I said. "Add it to the pile." Hanley's gaze found mine, amused. "Detective Vega. We keep meeting in my offices." "This one's public," I said. "You don't own the river." He shrugged. "I own the currents." He moved. Not a run, just a hand disappearing toward his waistband and a twist of the shoulder that telegraphed bad intentions. My gun was up before the thought finished. So was everyone else's. "Don't," I said, and the word hung in the fog like a wire. He froze. Then, slowly, he lifted his hand. A cigarette lighter gleamed in his palm. He grinned at my flinch, enjoying the small victory, then flicked the lighter with a theatrical click. "Relax," he murmured, and blew out a strip of flame that didn't belong to anyone. "Face the car," I said. "Hands on the roof." He considered a different ending. Then he chose the one the math allowed. He turned, placed his hands flat, and let Rodriguez cuff him. The metal on bone sounded like a door closing. We took the duffel and the folder. Inside the bag, cash, burner phones, a passport in a different name with his face, a ticket out. Inside the folder, exactly what Claire said, an affidavit, typed, notarization line blank, blaming Pell for everything and painting the police as bullies. It would have made a loud noise on a slow news day. "Get Claire out," I said to a uniform. She went willingly, eyes on the boards, avoiding the water like it might say her name. Hanley watched her go, then turned back to me, smiling again. "You'll lose your cleaner before you seat a jury," he said conversationally. "Prison is full of sharp corners." "We'll keep her away from yours," I said. "And we have your ledgers." Something flickered in his eyes then, first real surprise. He recovered fast. "Ledgers are fiction without the author." "You signed them," I said. "Fiction becomes memoir." He held my gaze, then chuckled. "You're fun, detective. I look forward to our next conversation." "You won't like the room," I said. We put him in one with no wobble in the chair. By dawn, warrants bloomed like weeds. The warehouse gave us more than ledgers, camera footage of meetings, cash logs, scraps of receipts with his initials, a burner with a threat message to my line, time-stamped and traced to the same tower his Civic kissed all night. The case didn't feel neat. It felt inevitable. Claire pled first. With the affidavit in evidence turned on its maker, she had no angle left. She signed a proffer, voice-wrecked, admitting to conspiracy and tampering, admitting she'd asked for a solution and walked too far into a room she pretended not to see. She agreed to testify against Hanley and Pell. The DA offered 8 years with parole consideration if she didn't peel anything back on the stand. She cried when she signed, not because of the number, I think, but because the page made it real. Pell watched the news in a holding cell that reeked of bleach and old sweat. When I slid Hanley's arrest report through the slot, she stared at it a long time. "He'll find me," she said. "Not if you go where he can't," I answered. "You give us Hanley on the record, we escort you into a life that doesn't know your name." She looked at me like she wanted to believe in maps that led somewhere safe. "I strangled him," she said, as if the room had forgotten. "My hands did that." "And your mouth can undo what his did," I said. "Testify." She did. On the stand she was flat and clinical, the way cleaners are when they list solvents. She laid out the meeting at the warehouse, the pitch, the threat, the signed page for a debt that wasn't hers to carry. She admitted the alley. She owned the trunk. She pointed at Hanley when the prosecutor asked who decided bodies are billboards. Hanley played amused until the ledgers came out. He smirked until the DVR rolled the silent film of him pushing paper to frighten people who believed money could outrun consequence. He leaned back, arms folded, when the threat call to my phone played for the jury. His cadence, his little laugh, framed in the same hour his car crawled past my station. When the verdict came, the room made its own weather. Organized crime, conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, extortion. 40 years. The judge called him a mathematician of misery. He smirked once more, then the deputies took away the last thing he controlled. Claire went in quieter. Pell got 18 with eligibility after 12 in exchange for testifying. She left the county in a van with blacked-out windows and a new name written on a folded piece of paper like a fragile spell. Protective custody isn't a promise. It's a fight you pay for every day. But it was more than a trunk behind a pizzeria. Months later, the river looks the same, but it isn't. The warehouse windows are boarded. The pizzeria painted over the water stain that looked like a shadow of a man. The alley still smells like tomatoes and old oil when it rains, but the bleach is gone. People stop me at coffee shops and ask about the trunk case, the one where the wife cried and the cleaner smiled and the fixer thought the current would always carry him. They want a simple ending. They want the moral in one sentence. I tell them there isn't one. I tell them debts make artists out of cowards and staging out of grief. I tell them monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like someone who thinks you'll sign where they tell you. At 2:13 a.m., weeks after the last gavel, I drove past Rosemont out of habit. The street lamp still threw that sick yellow. The alley was empty. No trunk waiting for me to write its caption. I pulled over anyway, stepped out, listened. Nothing but rain on metal and the soft, steady breath of a city that keeps secrets until someone opens the lid. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. I don't tell ghost stories. I tell the parts the press leaves out. And the next time someone says a man is missing, I'll check the places people think are too obvious to hide a life. Because the trunk isn't a hiding place. It's a stage. And my job is to make sure the last scene belongs to the truth.